Being the appointed time, I call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, sir?
Yes, certainly. Dr. Ruth Cox,
Present?
Trip Ure,
Here.
Jim Bisbee,
Here.
John Blackwelder is absent. Peggy Broadway,
Here.
Tony Bryant,
Here.
Ellen Sheridan,
Here.
Annette Stone,
Here.
and Candace Sullivan.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. I call for a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes that we have.
So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Can I call for a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, they are approved. The Historic Preservation Commission is a public commission appointed by the City of New Bern's Board of Aldermen. It is responsible for preserving and safeguarding New Bern's locally designated historic districts, downtown and Riverside, based on U.S. Department of Interior standards, state statutes, city ordinances, and the New Bern's Historic Guidelines. Two of the major tasks of the HBC include approving applications for a certificate of appropriateness and preventing demolition of historic structures due to neglect. The HBC holds a quasi-judicial hearing on an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The Commission hears sworn testimony and evidence provided by the applicant, by parties who received notice of the hearing, and by others who can justify that they have relevant evidence and are directly affected by the application. The Commission cannot consider comments based on personal likes or dislikes, hearsay, or personal opinion that cannot be directly related to specific historic guidelines. Likewise, commissioners shall refrain from stating personal opinions, personal likes or dislikes, or hearsay during the hearing. The Commission's decisions on an application is based solely on testimony and evidence presented at the hearing that directly relates to historic guidelines. Can we have the swearing in of any persons who are going to present tonight?
Yes. One moment.
You gonna go down? So all of those that are going to testify, you need to come forward.
All right. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
All right. Thank you. And go ahead and sign, print your name and your address on that. Charles, please print legibly.
Yes, sir.
No, the other Charles.
Okay.
Last time it was, who is that? Oh, yeah.
Let's doing it again.
Okay. Thank you. They did. I got the letter. I don't know about the check. She didn't tell me. Yeah. And she must have stopped by to drop off the letter, so.
Here is a summary of how we will proceed. The HBC Commissioner provides an overview of the COA application. The applicant or their representative presents the application. Proponents and opponents who receive notice of the hearing can present evidence. Rebuttal is allowed by the applicant and by proponents and opponents who receive notice. Others who can justify that they have relevant information and will be directly affected can present evidence. The HBC Commissioner presents the staff's findings and their recommendations. The applicant and their representative has an opportunity to make final comments on their application. Commissioners discuss the evidence and may ask for clarification from the applicant or their representatives. The chairman calls for a motion to approve or deny the application with stated findings of fact. The motion is discussed by the commission. The chairman calls for a vote on the motion by the commission. A COA can be approved with conditions, or denied. So let us go to the first application.
Okay, our first application for this evening is for 211 Johnson Street. There we go. And this is the application here. You can see all the information's been provided, and it's been signed and dated by the authorized representative, who is Ms. Tessa O'Regan. And that was her authorization form. And here we have the project is a landscape plan for landscaping the rear yard of 211 Johnson Street. And this is the plan which shows the planting. So the top of the page is the street, Johnson Street, and the residence was subject of an expansion project that was approved earlier, and this is the landscaping for it. So at the very top, closest to the street, I guess we should point out, there are plants shown along the perimeter, or along the foundation of the existing historic portion of the house. Then also along the top of the patio or terrace area at the top. This big large rectangle on the right side is a pool. And we're showing travertine paving, and then some zoysia grass around the perimeter of the pool, and the travertine continues down to the entrance to the garage at the bottom. And then along the historic kitchen and the new addition, there are other plantings shown here as well. And then at the end of the pool, some new plantings at the end of the pool. The driveway is existing material, and then in this lower right-hand corner of the property, an extensive amount of plantings in this area, bordered along the driveway with some zoysia grass again. And then on the left side, adjacent to the garage, are plantings at the end of the garage, the left side of the garage, and then out to the, along the driveway, out to the gate at the entrance to the driveway. So we'll talk about some of those in a minute, some of that in a minute, and hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. This is an example of the Travertine Paving that we're talking about, the applicants are talking about. And then they've also provided a tree removal plan as well, considering there are quite a significant number of trees that are to be removed along with this plan, mostly due to the location of the pool, but also because there would otherwise be in the middle of the walkway up at the top here. And the tree here for the addition was already essentially approved by the previous approval. Then down at the bottom here we have, you can see the new plantings, but also shown are some removals. There's one at the end of the garage, right here, southern magnolia, right? And then also along the driveway is a river birch, right at the edge of the driveway. We'll see that in a second too. And then a kind of a row or a number of plants along this, I guess, southeast edge or the southern edge of the eastern side of the property. So, for the two more significant trees, the magnolia, southern magnolia, this is the arborist report recommending removal of that, and I believe we'll also see why. No, we won't. Okay. And then the second one, this is actually the second one here, for the river birch as well. And don't know why we don't have the photos for those. If you want, I can pull them up. I believe I have them right on this computer. If there's any question about those. But again, the arborist recommended removal of the river birch as well. Then we have the zoning and inspection review, and both the zoning, sorry, this is really awkward moving around like this. The zoning administrator says it does meet the requirements of the land use ordinance, and the chief building inspector says it will not require a building permit. So other than that, we're ready for our recommendations, unless you want me to pull up some of those photographs that I must have elsewhere.
Okay, does the applicant want to present anything? Is the applicant here?
Well, do we have any conflicts of interest?
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me ask that. Are there any conflicts of interest?
Yes. I live within 100 feet of it,
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so I recuse myself.
okay.
Well, you need a motion?
Yes, I'm getting ready to ask for it.
Okay, sorry.
It's all right. Can we have a motion to?
So moved.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Okay. Does anybody have any issues with the application? Okay. Does the applicant want to present anything? The applicant here? Is that you? You don't have anything to say? Okay. Are there any notified proponents? Are there any notified opponents? Peggy, okay. Do you wish to speak?
Yes.
Did you get sworn in?
No.
So you need to come and get sworn in and sign in so you can speak.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Please print your name and your address, please.
That's good. Got through that. Thank you very much. I just had some questions. I understand the need for the magnolia, as much as I hate to see it go. It is too awfully close to the building. It's almost touching the building, so I understand that. I do have a question about the river birch. The river birch has two trunks. One goes straight, the other one kind of goes over the driveway. And my question is, do we need to take out the entire tree? Could we just not take out the one that leans over the driveway? That's a concern I have.
Okay, so I can at least answer with what the certified arborist said, and I'll make this larger. So this is regarding the river birch. You can see in the upper left here it says river birch. Let's see. First it talks about target. There's a driveway and homeowners. And if there's any protection to them, no, in both cases. The amount of, then if the target is within the drip line, they check that off for both driveway and homeowners. Then with regard to how often that is an issue, the driveway is constantly constantly a target, and the homeowners are occasionally a target. Then predicted to move target. You can't move the driveway nor the homeowners. And relocation practical, they responded no to both. So then history of failures, there were none. Let's go to some more relevant items that are here. There's no known pests or biotic conditions. So let's see, it describes the crown and branches, it describes the trunk, the roots, and the root collar. So you were talking about the trunk.
And that's the magnolia, right?
Right, it has codominant stems, so multiple stems, has included bark, is what they've noted here. Then for roots and root collar, some kind of girding, stem girding, I guess is what it is. And then it has notes, the conditions of concern is the roots are lifting the driveway, and pruning would be too close to the trunk to prune it back. Then we're talking again about the targets. And for the driveway and the owners, we have limbs, and the limbs are known to fall. The likelihood of failure is, I can't read that, the first one. Second, for impact is high. For failure and impact from a matrix is likely.
So that first column is probable.
Thank you, probable. Then consequences, I don't know, can you help me on that one too? I can't quite make that out. Let's make it larger. Let's see, so the worst case would be severe, significant, moderate maybe, and significant for homeowners. Then, so the risk rating from Matrix 2 is the risk to the driveway is medium and to owners is high. Then there's a note here in the circle, birch and cherry laurels should be removed. Birch damaging driveway, cherry laurels will restored the growth of future,
Restricted growth.
restrict or retard the growth of future and more desirable trees. So,
And Matt, are we dealing with just the two trees that are listed, the magnolia and the river birch? Or are we going over to the trees that are being replaced for the swimming pool?
so those are the two. We have the reports from the certified arborist.
Those two?
Those two, right. So there are others, and it may be somewhat debatable as to whether or not they're trees or not.
So they have not been seen by the arborist, they will come up at a later
I don't
time?
believe so, but if you want, we can ask the applicant at this point any more questions than I can answer at this point.
Yeah, that would be good.
How do we want to handle that?
So the homeowner is here,
Or the applicant?
the applicant?
Applicant's representative.
Okay, your representative? Yes. Okay. Can you answer any of her questions? Yes. Okay, can you come forward and answer them?
Thank you, Tessa.
I specifically asked the arborist your exact question, Peggy, about whether we could save one of the boughs of the river birch. So it has two trunks that sort of, one goes over the driveway and the other one leans towards one of the neighbor's properties. In order to solve the driveway issue with the roots, the bucking of the roots, because the river birch is planted so close to the driveway, root pruning is not an option because it would severely weaken and damage the tree. So if you think of the driveway being here and the birch is right here and it's right butted up against the driveway, if we have to try and prune these roots on this side to prevent them from butting the driveway, the tree is going to have no anchor in the ground and is literally going to fall onto the neighbor's property. And that's what the arborist was most concerned about because there's a beautiful wall and a neighbor's house on that side.
Yeah, and I can accept that.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, are those the only two trees we're dealing with tonight?
Those
Yes.
are the only two, all of these trees on the tree removal list need to be removed in order for the construction to take place and the pool to be installed and paving to be installed.
Okay. And Matt, when you sent this out, you also included a reading from John Wood, and he said very clearly that any trees that are removed should be replaced by a tree that would reach the same height or the same canopy. So, Tessa, where are you going to put those two trees?
So on my tree removal plan, which was the second drawing, Matt, if you could pull that up.
Sure. Whoops, going the wrong way.
Yeah, it's that one. So there's a graph with exactly the trees that I'm putting out and how many trees I'm replacing with. It's that one that's on the bottom there. I think I'm planting 29 trees and I'm removing 19 trees.
Okay, and are you putting 21 trees,
29.
some of them that reach the same height?
Yes, absolutely. And in that graphic, I've literally compared them apples with apples. For example, we're removing 3 Italian cypress. We're replacing them with 3 arborvitaes that are very similar shape and size.
Excellent.
I've planted the river birch. I've been planting a Franzon cherry tree. The river birch gets to about 30 feet tall and 40 feet wide. Cherry trees get to 30 by 30.
And
So it's pretty much 1-for-1 in that graphic.
excellent. And along the brick wall next to what used to be the Startsman's house,
Yes.
now it's the McClellan's, are you going to remove those trees?
They're not really along there. There are 2
Cherries?
laurels, yeah.
Yeah.
And I did send a photograph to Matt of those because the arborist was concerned that you can see from my photograph the way the trees are leaning, they lean away from the wall. They're very homely. I mean, one has a trunk that's an old damaged trunk and then two shoots have shot up. They're really not very attractive trees. But they are leaning in towards where the future cherry trees would be. And the arborist's biggest concern was that there would be insufficient sunlight because of the two cherry laurels for the three cherries.
You're
So
right about that.
If I may interrupt for a moment, I have now rotated the drawing so we can read that chart you were talking about where it was the 19 trees removed and 29 being planted. And these are the one-for-ones that you're talking about. So the Italian cypress, for 3 of them, for example, are being replaced by 9 arborvitaes, etc. All right, and then, sorry, you wanted me, I can show you the other example. You were talking about this one, right? The magnolia.
And
Yes.
that's being replaced with a white oak, which is a
Can you
canopy tree.
speak a little closer to the microphone, please?
So the southern magnolia is being replaced by a white oak, which is a canopy tree. It grows very large. It gets to about 60 to 100 feet by 60 feet wide. There are already 2 beautiful existing canopy trees, which you know, those 2 pecans, the one that we're keeping against the western boundary, and then there's another pecan that's in your neighbor's yard. That's an absolutely beautiful, way over 100 feet. So there are 2 existing beautiful canopy trees, and then the oak will join those.
Very good, very good.
And then these are the other photographs. I did find them. This is the river birch, and the previous photograph shows how it's uplifting the driveway. And then these are some of the other trees that you were, or bushes or plants that you were talking about just a few minutes ago. This one on the left that's more like a popsicle, right? That one's the viburnum, correct?
Right.
And then the one that's much more leggy in the middle, or to the right of the middle of the picture, is the fig tree, apparently kind of a young one, or not fully matured. And then this photograph is the back corner of the property with the 2 cherry laurels, which are these, one on the left is quite a bit smaller, the one on the right, I believe, is bigger. And those will be replaced with Kwanzan cherry trees. And then this brightly colored small one is the cypress tree that would be simply transplanted. All right. So I apologize for not having that in the presentation to begin with.
So I have a question. Do we have a plan for where all the new trees are going to go? So this is a plan for where all the trees are being taken up. Do you have a picture of where all the new trees are going to go?
Yes, that was this first one here, where I talked about the pool and everything. So we can go back now because we've now had that little bit of discussion to clarify. So we go past the pool and down to the garage on the left. And so the white oak is this great big one here that is to replace the southern magnolia that was over here in this very tight area between the garage and the property line. And then we have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the right here. What kind are they? Some kind of holly?
Those are Nellie Stevens hollies, yeah.
Which kind?
Nellie Stevens. They get very big, but they're cylindrical in shape. And we are removing 4 hollies where the new master bedroom extension is going to be. So those are kind of 1-for-1 for those, to replace those.
Okay. And then there's 3 larger trees in front of those. Those are the Kwanzan cherries
Correct.
that we mentioned in the previous photograph. Then there is a row along the bottom here of the yellow ribbon arborvitaes. And then behind those and along the fence are 5 viburnum chindo viburnums that were also mentioned earlier. Let's see. The rest are smaller shrubs and grasses. Yeah, so those are the trees.
Okay.
Now, also to mention, these three here are also, pear trees, correct?
No, they are European beech trees.
Beech, sorry. And that's why she provided this photograph here to show that they will be pruned in kind of a square shape or rectangular shape, similar to what's kind of shown on the plan, bleached.
Okay. Peggy, do you have any more questions you'd like to ask?
Not from Tessa, but just a comment. One of the things, I just wanted to get this out there. At one time when New Bern had a tree commission, tree/beautification commission, Parks and Rec, who was in charge of it any tree removals at that time, would send the arborist to determine if a tree needed to come down. That's been changed, and now the person who has to pay for an arborist to come. My concern is, and this has nothing to do with Tessa, my concern is that if the arborist comes out and he knows that this person is paying them, and he knows what they want, what are the chances he's going to say, no, you need to keep this tree? And to me, that greatly affects the canopy in New Bern. And one of our greatest granted resources is our trees. And I commend Matt for replacing as many as he can. But please be aware that when someone hires an arborist, they're not going to be that interested in the tree. They're going to be interested in being paid. That's a personal opinion, but it shows mankind.
So
I'm sorry.
if I may interrupt, this is why we specify a certified arborist, and they get paid no matter what they say.
I know that, but they want to please someone, so they recommend them for someone else. I mean,
Okay, and I'm going to stop you there because this is not something that we can do something about. And I
I know.
hear your concern, and perhaps we can bring this up at design review as an item in design review to see what else can be done about that. But there's nothing our commission can do about that at this
I
time. But
understand
it is
that.
a legitimate concern, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
I understand that.
Okay.
And good job, Tessa.
Okay. So we're now to opponents. Okay, is there anybody with relevant evidence that has standing out in the audience? I don't hear that. Okay, so sir, would you like to give us staff findings?
Peggy?
Yes. You
still need to remain out.
need to stay out there until we finish. Yeah. Thank you. We'll keep your seat for you.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome, dear. We won't forget you. Okay. So we're to standings, sir. Staff findings.
All right.
Staff findings.
Here we go. The recommendations. All right. That might be legible, right?
Yes.
So here are recommendations for application for Mr. and Ms. Douglas Townsend and Tessa O'Regan. The project address is 211 Johnson Street in New Bern. 211 Johnson Street project is to include a landscape plan in the secondary and tertiary AVCs. The National Register inventory information is the historic property name is the Mitchell Stevenson House, built circa 1800 to 1805, and I guess remodeled in 1830 to 1840. The status is it is a contributing structure in the historic district. The description from the historic register inventory is 2 stories. The building is 2 stories, 4 bays wide, exterior end chimneys, gable end roofs, attic dormers. And the Sandbeck description, I've excerpted things that are, there's almost nothing in there about landscaping, but this is a little bit that may provide some insight about the description of the property. Joshua Mitchell, a respected New Bern brick mason, had this house constructed. Mitchell was described as a master workman who made many of the brick houses and chimneys erected in town. The large two-story rear L was added during the 20th century, connecting the house to its original but much altered kitchen. An early 19th century two-story porch shelters the rear elevation. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. For landscaping, 2.4.1, 2.4.3, 2.4.4, and 2.4.7. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the site is a contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. 2, the proposal is a landscaping project within the secondary and tertiary AVCs. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include a landscape plan in the secondary and tertiary AVCs.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody who has evidence of testimony from the state, city, or government in our audience? Seeing none. So the applicant's representative, do you have anything else you'd like to say? All right. So now, are there any other questions that you'd like to ask from the commission members? Does anyone else have any questions on this side? Seeing none, shaking head no. On this side, hearing none. Okay. Can I have a motion then? Someone have a motion?
Was that Candace? Is that you that did the motion? Not yet. Okay. I thought you said so moved.
Do we have a second?
Well, wait.
Madam Chair, as a point of clarification, I think we need to know what the motion was. If
Yeah.
it was a motion to approve the application, I think we need some additional information.
Right.
Yeah. So normally the motion would be to find the application either incongruous or not incongruous with the New Bern's Code of Ordinance sections, et cetera, and then go and list the guidelines. Okay,
Yeah. I'll be happy to do it.
okay. Jim?
Okay, we're going to let you do it?
I move we find the application for a certificate of appropriateness for 211 Johnson Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15411 to 15429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Landscaping, 2.4.1, 2.4.3, 2.4.4, 2.4.7. Statements of reason: the site is a contributing resource to the tight weave development pattern. Proposal is a landscaping project within the secondary and tertiary AVCs. The proposed design, components, and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. The project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. Do we hear any opposed? None opposed, okay? Can I have a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
So moved
Second.
over here, is there a second?
Second.
Second on this side. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. Do I hear any opposed? Hear none, it passes.
All right.
All right?
Can I come back?
Okay, can we have a motion for us to reclaim Peggy?
So moved.
Move down here, second.
Second.
Second over here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Come on, baby. Opposed? Hearing none, please join us again, Peggy. Okay, can we have 302 Broad Street?
Okay.
What has happened about that?
Sounded a bit like an auction there. On my limits. Okay, so 302 Broad Street, this is the application with the various items included on the application, and then the signature and date. This, however, is an item that was requested to be continued to the February 16, 2022 meeting, so as to be continued. So in order to effect that, we would need a motion to continue to that meeting at that time and in this place.
And that is in the time frame of our guidelines, right?
That's correct. We
Okay.
have
Okay, so
until
it
March.
meets that
We have
requirement.
until March to act. I mean, April is the deadline, but we would have to act by the March meeting.
By the March meeting, okay.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, at the request of the applicant, that we continue the application for 302 Broad Street until February 16th, 2022, in the courtroom of City Hall, and I believe that will be at 5:30 p.m.
5:30 p.m.
Yes.
Second.
We have a second over here on the left. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. We will continue this to our February regular meeting. Okay, now we have 221 South Front Street.
Let's see, Madam Chair, I have a conflict of interest for both 221 South Front Street as well as the next application, 211 Pollock Street.
Okay.
My office represents both those clients, and I ask to be excused.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to excuse the vice chair?
So moved.
Have the motion over here. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who's second? Peggy was second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Do I hear any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. So we'll let you sit out front for a little bit.
Is there anyone else who needs to recuse himself? No?
I don't think so. Okay, so can we start then with 221 South Front Street?
Yes, as we see on the screen, the first page of the application. Hold on one second. Okay. And we see all the items have been filled out here, and we have a signature and a date at the bottom by the authorized representative, who is MBF Architects, and Mr. Ure will be their representative. And their cover sheet includes some other information that wasn't shown in the application, such as wood doors and windows, true divided light, wood painted, wood overhead doors, wood painted, brick masonry, board and batten, wood siding, wood painted. So then now we'll go to first page of the drawings, and we see an aerial view here, and they're pointing out the location of the site and then enlarging that over here on the right with their drawing of the site. And I will now go back to the larger view. Oops, sorry. So we can see what's there. So here we go. So the street is at the top. And the historic Harvey Mansion building is this rectangle here, or this pair of rectangles here, evidenced by the 4 chimneys. And then the project is basically all the rest of the site, which includes a wraparound addition here. These are the roofs for that. There's also a rear deck area. And then the gray areas are walkways on the left-hand side or the west side, also along the southern side. And then the other gray area is upper right or the northeast corner for the entryway to the addition. The addition is a restaurant. And we'll see some of this in more detail below. So okay, so here's a enlarged plan with more detail and more information. Sorry. So What it indicates here is, let's start in the upper right, we have grease trap accesses here. In the paving, we have a standing seam metal roof on the entryway. We have membrane roofs on all these other roofs, except for this rectangle here, which is a barrel vaulted or a round roof, flat block seam metal roof. Then what we also see on the left is some of the landscaping and such along this walkway. There's an element in the circle, in the middle of the circle as well. Also to note is a handicapped ramp here in the bottom left corner, which I forgot to mention. On the upper right-hand corner is another handicapped ramp coming up along this side, on the east side, the northeast corner of the project. And then at the very bottom, in the very lower left southwest corner, we have the masonry dumpster enclosure, which opens out to the south. And the walkway continues out to the roadway along the southern edge. And what I should also note here is where it shows mulch. There's also a whole series of shrubs along here, and that's actually a terraced garden. So that is a couple feet up above the ground, above the walkway that's along the back. And then behind that, or to the north side of that, along the edge of the deck is a tall wall. All right. So now we'll go to the elevations, the south elevation. So looking from that parking area, essentially, back towards the building, this gives you an idea of that, what that dumpster wall, and then where the parking spaces will pull up to the to the walkway. There's that small terraced wall here, and then the tall wall behind that. And then behind that wall is the deck. And you can see some of the details of this elevation. We'll see that in a different elevation as well, so you can see more information. Here we have details of the main entry gate that's on the front of the building, and then several other iron gates at other locations around the property. And this gives you a section view of that terrace garden area where I was mentioning the tall wall with the deck behind it, the shrubs in front, and then it's a 2-foot 4-inch garden wall. So these are existing elevations. So the south elevation currently looks like this. And to note here is particularly the arched window excuse me, over the existing rear door. And then the rest of the fenestration and the existing balconies. Then on the street side, the north elevation, it's basically just some windows in this configuration. And there is the entryway to the 2 porches on the side, which are 2 entryways, current entryways as well. So on one side, you see there's the one of the entryways I'm mentioning. And you can also see that there's currently existing a porch or deck out the back of the property. And then from the other side, again, similar, almost exactly the same kind of thing on the other side. In this elevation, the road is to the right and the parking area is to the left. That's existing. Here on the south, the new proposed south elevation, that previous archway is emulated by this arched roof and window configuration here for the rear entry, which is, all this is facing the rear deck area. And let's see, the previously approved balconies are shown here as well, although the 2 on the right have been adjusted slightly to accommodate a certain asymmetry of the actual building. Then we can see here some of the materials are being shown. The brick, basically at the base, and then board and batten on top. All the doors and windows are wood. And then we have our otherwise flat roofs here to the left and right of the barrel, and then off to the right-hand side. The extra height entryway does have some standing seam roofing on there. Let's see. Oh, and I guess to note is also the elevations above sea level approximately, I guess. So that may come into play or discussion later. The design flood elevation is 11.5 feet, and the ground is currently at 6 feet. So the north elevation, so the street side is now, we'll have a new entryway for the restaurant on the left. So once you go through the gate and wall that's out front, this would be the elevation inside that area. So some steps up to the front door and a ramp on the left. Let's see, the same materials as I mentioned before. And a louvered wood screen on the right to screen the HVAC units that are over there. So that's the end of that. Then the side view from the convention center, so the right, off to the right is the street, and off to the left is the parking. And so here we see the full length of that addition on the side of the property. And on the right here, the wall is sloping up because that's where the ramp is. Let's see, I guess the deck has a metal balustrade on the end here. There is an overhead door on this side. And also to note here is that the entryway, the roof does extend over the actual entryway itself. You can see this on the left here where the two windows are is a solid wall, whereas the white area here is all open space. And you're actually looking here at the side of the Harvey Mansion building and the existing entryway there. Also a sign here. Then on the other side, the west elevation, a little bit less dramatic, but we still have the addition here with the board and batten, the wood brackets under the overhangs, and brick wall on the ramp on that side of the building. And then this is, someone had asked about gateway entrance to the basement stairway there. All right. And these are just the design elevation. Okay, and then we have the whole series of details here we can get into if you'd like later. Showing railings and screens for the transformers. They've provided, again, the historic photographic, basically history of the structure since 1800s or even 1700s. Well, probably not a photograph from the 1700s. And now today, currently, this one in the bottom center, in the center of the screen at the moment. They've also provided some images of what the light fixtures would be. I've failed to mention that on the elevations, but that's what the light fixtures, sconces would be around the entire perimeter of the building. And then this this is to represent the style and character of the overhead doors that are also throughout the structure, the proposal. Was there something else on that page? No. Lastly, they did provide some three-dimensional sketch images so that we can have a good idea what it looks like. I'll make them a little bit bigger here. And you can see, compared to the mass of the building, of the existing building and the sizes and proportions of the various parts, the redesigned front entry gateway since the last time. So that gives you an idea of the character of the proposal. Then that's for the entryway, obviously. This is then the other side of the building from the street at the bottom, that walkway that was mentioned. And then it too has a masonry wall and gate. And so you can go through and there's a focal element at that round area. And then the ramp at the back, the trash enclosure at the back as well. The transformer enclosure is here. And there's a third one over here on this side. Sorry. To give you an idea from the back. So this is the trash enclosure on the left, the stairway up to the deck here, and the ramp also going up here. And then this shows the board and batten siding and the round barrel vaulted roof here, and the terrace, garden terrace wall, and the tall brick wall along the back or the parking lot side of the deck. They've also included a more recent historic photograph showing the prior context. As was mentioned in the earlier approval, the building had a huge addition, or a 3-story addition on the back prior to as balconies that have since been removed, do not exist today. And actually, almost everything in this photo does not exist today, except for the Harvey mansion itself and the house across the street, and maybe the downtown building across the street. All the rest no longer exists. But the point of this photograph is to kind of give you the character of the area around the Harvey mansion back when it was a working pier environment. In fact, this looks like it was a shipyard down here. You can see the 1-story building here, even the kind of garage door bay openings here as well, and other similar buildings around here on that site, or right behind it. All right, that does it for that. That brings us to the zoning and inspections review. So for them, the zoning officer says it currently does not meet the requirements of the land use ordinance. The proposed project may not reduce the existing number of parking spaces. The chief building inspector says it will require a building permit. So that's, otherwise I'm ready with recommendations.
Okay. All right. So does the applicant want to add anything else to this?
Well, Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Trip Ewer. I'm the principal of MBF Architects, and want to thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Want to thank Matt for providing a comprehensive overview of our application, most of which is what you have seen previously. We have digested the feedback from the design review, and we have lowered the clear story element on the front of the restaurant and combined that with a somewhat taller ornamental iron railing and made that a bit more transparent. And we can talk about that more because that's new to you since we were here last. Well, there was something else we had taken care of that has escaped my mind, but we will get to it. So with that in mind, we're here to answer any other questions you might have.
Trip, are the two doors that are shown on the south side of the building, are they entrance doors to the restaurant?
Yeah,
I see that.
Well, there are many doors on the south side of the building, and all of
I'm
them do
thinking
go into
on
the
the
restaurant. Yeah, well,
They're-
all of it is the restaurant on the first level.
So they're entrance doors.
There are two personnel doors, I will call them, and then a number of overhead doors that open up.
Okay.
Much like, and I remember the point now that I was going to cover. The photograph we provided shows a nice low one-story utility-type building, much like we talked about our rationale in previous design reviews with the overhead doors in it. And so we see a parallel there, although we realize it's not a direct comparison, but is something that had occurred in the past.
Okay, and let us get to questions when we get further down here. So, are there any notified proponents that want to speak to the project in the audience? Proponents. Are there any opponents? I don't see either one of those. Okay? And, sir, is there anything else you want to say at this point in time? Okay? Is there anybody out there who has relevant evidence and has standing that would like to speak to this project? Seeing none, we will move on. So, sir, would you like to make staff findings evident to us?
Are there any state, city, or government body?
Oh, yeah. We can do that now if you want to.
Yep.
Are there any state, city, or government individuals out there? Don't see any. Okay. All right, so you can give us your findings.
Yes. All right. Okay, so this is our recommendations for John Harvey LLC and MBF Architects for their project for 221 South Front Street. Historic property name is the Harvey Mansion, built circa 1798. It is a contributing structure in the historic district, and the National Register inventory description is it's federal style, 3 stories above a raised basement, 5 bays wide, paired central windows above arched entrance, interior end chimneys, and gable end parapet roof. Sandbeck's description, only relevant piece, seemed to be converted to apartments in the 1940s. We saw that photograph. That's also been changed. So so the project for 221 South Front Street is to include a 1-story addition and site modifications in the secondary and tertiary AVCs. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines are appropriate to this application. Public and open spaces, 2.2.1, utilities, 2.3.1, 2.3.2, and 2.3.6. For landscaping, 2.4.3, 2.4.4, 2.4.7. For fences and garden walls, 2.5.1. In a 2.5.2 and 2.5.3. For parking, 2.7.5. For signage, 2.8.2. For design principles, 3.1.1 through 5. For modifications, 3.2.1, 3.2.2, and 3.2.4. For additions, 3.3.1 and 3.3.2. For foundations, 4.1.1, 4.1.3, 4.1.4, 4.1.5, and 4.1.6. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.1, 4.2.2, 4.2.4. For windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.1 through 3. For entrances, Wait, really? Oh, sorry. 4.4.1, 4.4.4, thank you. For roofs, 4.5.4, 4.5.6. For decks and patios, 4.6.2. For accessibility and life safety, 4.7.2. For masonry, 5.1.1 through 5. For wood, 5.2.1 and 5.2.2. For metals, 5.3.3 and 5.3.4. For paint, 5.4.1 through 4. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are, do not go too far, or, okay. The project is located in the dense fabric development pattern. 2, the proposal is an addition and site work project. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include a 1-story addition and site modifications in the secondary and tertiary AVCs, with the condition that kitchen exhaust hoods and other mechanical appurtenances be submitted to the Historic Preservation Administrator for their review or HPC review.
Thank you, sir. Sir, would you like to make any additional comments at this time? Okay. So the floor is now open for questions. If people had questions before, ask them now. There's things that you want to go over, and then we need to also talk about the kitchen exhaust hoods and the mechanical appurtenances that are there as well.
Could you clarify the project not meeting the land use requirements?
Sure. The zoning administrator has indicated that the project needs to maintain or not reduce the existing number of parking spaces.
So that's the condition. If they meet that condition, then it's okay. Is that
As far as zoning is concerned,
as far as zoning,
I guess.
yeah,
Mhm.
I got it, yeah.
Do we know how many that is?
I think the applicant does.
Sir, do you know how many that is?
How many parking stalls? I believe it's 17, but maybe I could give you a little background on that before we talk a little further, if that's okay. So we've been talking with the planning department and have identified a number of possibilities for us to be in compliance with the zoning ordinance. We have not selected which of those possibilities we will be undertaking. But however, like many projects, you need permitting from multiple jurisdictions and agencies, and there is no roadmap that tells you which permit to get first. So we've advised our client that HPC really determines the viability of the project, and what we would like to do is take your approval, and we will take that to the planning department to decide how we'll come into compliance with parking.
So we would make that one of the requirements, one of the additional requirements, if we approve this, that you do that.
It's a requirement for another body, I guess.
So as a board member who's in the audience, I don't know that I would care.
Okay. Okay.
You know, but you certainly may.
Yes.
Obviously, we'll have to have that zoning permit
So it's got to go,
to start construction.
basically, it's got to go back to zoning.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our next hurdle.
Okay, all right.
Madam Chair, in the spirit of being helpful, it may be appropriate if this commission is inclined to approve this application to offer as a condition that construction not begin until the project complies with the land use ordinance as determined by the zoning administrator.
That sounds like a very good suggestion. Please keep those words in mind, because and I know you will, because we may need those at the end here. Thank you very much, okay? That'll take care of that.
And I'm almost 100% certain that we cannot get a building permit without having the zoning permit,
Yes, that would be true.
which is essentially the same thing.
Right, okay. All right. Other questions that we may have at this point in time that people want to ask?
Trim.
Yes, ma'am.
We might have had this come before. What's the seating in the restaurant, roughly? Do you know?
I think it's roughly 75 to 100 chairs.
Thank you.
Did I answer your other question from earlier?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yeah, you had another question. I asked you to wait till now. Did
Oh,
you
okay.
want to answer
My
that
question was,
now?
the double doors that you show on the south side of the building, is that an additional entrance into the building? I see the entrance from the north side.
And so maybe we need to look at that elevation, because I think the only double doors are on the north side of the building.
Yeah.
And on the south side, there are a number of overhead doors.
I'm just
as
thinking
well
of-
as some pedestrian doors, but I don't think there are any double doors.
I was just thinking of access from the parking lot into the restaurant.
But there is access on the south side,
On the south side?
yes.
Oh, that's good.
So
Okay.
these doors over the piece that does that, those are not a set of doors there?
That is an overhead door, very similar to the product information that is on a sheet towards the end of the,
Okay, that was a question I had. So these that look like double doors here, these are all garage doors?
that's correct.
Okay.
And that's done to capture the previous architecture, or?
The idea is to be able to open up the building when temperatures are conducive to outdoor dining and to let the air move through the building in the summer.
And these doors open until there's a balcony out there, is that right? It's what they open up onto if you walked out of them?
Yes, there is
balcony out
a elevated terrace.
The terrace, and is the plan to put chairs and tables out on that terrace?
I would, yes.
Okay.
I would assume so. Frankly, we've not talked about how many or
Okay.
what arrangement.
Okay, because I had that question when you talked about overhead doors, so that answered mine. We've answered the question about the parking space. What can you tell us about elevation? And if you all meet that issue?
Well, obviously, we'll again, have to be in compliance with the flood ordinance.
Yes, that's what I'm after.
Again, this is not our usual run-of-the-mill application in that regard. Grade is somewhere around 6 feet of elevation. The design flood elevation, which is the ordinance or the FEMA +2, is somewhere around 11.5 feet. That is essentially the first floor level of the Harvey mansion.
The first,
We're obviously have a floor level that is not 11.5 feet in the air. In other words, we're somewhere between halfway, roughly, between the 6 feet and the 11.5 in the restaurant. So because of that, to comply with the flood ordinance, that's why you see all the masonry only going up the building partially, because all the material, the primary materials that are below the floodplain have to essentially be impervious, might not be the right word, but certainly water resistant, where conventional wood or something of that nature would absorb water in a flood event and be problematic, where all this is masonry and concrete that simply gets hosed and washed out, and all the mud gets washed out after a flood event.
so what is the height of the floor of the restaurant? Is my question clear, or?
No, it is. I want to give you an accurate idea. It's roughly halfway between the 6 feet and the 11.5 feet, and I think it's somewhere at 10.25 feet or thereabouts.
And so that,
The floor is at the bottom of those overhead doors in elevation.
right. So the back of this restaurant, you cannot get from the back of this restaurant into the Harvey Mansion proper.
No, we'll be able to get in. We'll have to go upstairs.
That was my next question, but you're going to have to go upstairs.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is going to be your plan for dealing with this issue of flood elevation? Your plan is to use this bricking to stop the water from coming and getting into the Harvey Mansion?
That is a primary component of it. There are other aspects that maybe are beyond what our guidelines describe. But for example, we'll have to run power from the ceiling down, and it'll be at an unusually high dimension off the floor because it'll have to be above floodplain. We'll have to make sure all the heating and air equipment and electrical panel boards are above the floodplain, which is, again, we'll put them either in the ceilings or at unusual heights if they occur down in the restaurant piece.
What about any electrical stuff you have to have outside?
We will comply with the flood ordinance. There are certain items that are exempt. My understanding is that we'll have to work closely with the building inspector to determine which items can be below floodplain and which can't. We've got a grandfathered basement, which, although we're part of the project moving a lot of the problems to higher above flood elevation for obvious reasons, there will still be electrical in the basement below flood elevation by virtue of the current or past use of the building.
Right.
And obviously, there's a transformer that the city owns that's in the pedestrian space that will be below floodplain anyway.
This is a transformer you talk about that you've got a wall around?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that,
Yeah.
and that's not above the elevation?
No, ma'am, it is not.
And
So,
do you have a plan for that?
it's not ours to plan for.
Oh, okay. The city has.
So that's the city's
Okay.
responsibility
Okay.
as far
Okay.
as we're concerned.
Okay.
And so to my knowledge, I think we have a relatively new, or not new, but an updated flood ordinance. And we may be one of the first projects to be in the zone where it's not clearly elevated above, where everything is a bit more simple. And so we plan on working closely with inspections and the planning department as necessary to make sure that we comply with all those requirements.
Okay. So I'm wondering if that also needs to be a consideration that we add to this. Although you're not going to get out of zoning in a building zone, a building
Right.
code. without-
We take no exception to that
Yeah,
if
okay.
that's
All
your
right, so we need to add that.
preference.
So can you go around, sir, and show us the other side of the building where you made some changes? Because we discussed that in design review, and you said that you had made some changes here.
Right?
So just to be sure that everybody knows this and what you have changed, because we did ask you to adapt that.
Sure, and maybe we can start with the perspective that is on your screen.
Yes.
We've lowered the height of the clear story
Yeah.
somewhere between 1 and 2 feet. We've moved the sign to be between the 2 square windows and the top of the pair of doors. We've also added some ornamental ironwork to the front garden wall, I prefer to call it, and done a combination of, I believe that's about a total of 6 feet tall to the far right. So we've got about 2 feet of ornamental iron on top of the 4 feet of masonry we had previously. But now we've taken the opportunity to step down the masonry that forms the curvature and plan to around 2 feet above grade, and then bring up the ornamental iron to make up that difference. And then also we've sloped it so that when we get back to the elevation, you'll see how that really brings a focal point on the entrance, which was your purpose, I believe, in asking us to explore that, as well as our purpose for our client. Any business owner wants as much, attention as they can get to their front door.
And so how tall is, as it slopes back and goes to your entrance, how tall at the tallest part is it placed on top of the brick at the bottom, right there where he's got his little hand? How
So-
tall is that?
The tallest, the ornamental iron piece at its tallest is 6 feet, and it's on top of 2 feet of masonry.
Okay.
But then it also comes back down fairly quickly, and we've elected to do that, one, to reinforce the perspective that I've just described. And then secondly, we're also pretty well versed in your guidelines and your intent, so we didn't want to have too much additional garden wall than what was needed to achieve our purpose.
And Tripp, I'm sure you've addressed this, but handicap access
Yes, ma'am, we have 2 handicap ramps.
from the front? Is it
One in the
behind?
front and one in the rear.
There's one to the left here, Peggy. If you look Yes, if you can show her, the ramp goes up
Yeah,
there and
I'm
comes
trying to figure where
around.
you pick it up.
You pick it up from the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Well, no.
So the first one, and while we're looking at this perspective, on the far left, it runs up the outside of the building into a personnel door that comes out.
She'd like to know where the bottom of it is.
It's
Right
right
behind-
here at street level
And right behind this wall.
and right behind that garden wall.
And then there's one on the back, Peggy, on the back, if you were facing the building from South Front Street, at the back on the right-hand corner. Am I correct with that?
You are?
So there's two handicap ramps
Excellent.
in there.
This is the second one on the screen. You can see
Here's the second
the
one.
bottom of it here, and then it goes to a landing and comes back, switch back.
And then those gates to the left there, Peggy, they're just ground level and they go along the side of the building. But there's gates in there where people can get in.
Gotcha.
What, if they're in
So that's the other end of the plaza
Yeah.
with all the softscape and landscape.
And have you identified what all of your plantings and all are, or are you going to come back and tell us that?
We would prefer to come back and review those in detail when that time arrives.
All right, so are there any other questions at this point in time that anybody would like to ask? Okay, so as we go to make a recommendation, there are two things I see. If anybody else sees something else, please speak up, that we need to address, and that is the parking spaces, and we have some verbiage for that, and also issues dealing with flood elevation. That needs to be dealt with the building inspector. Is that the right person, the building inspector?
For flood elevation.
Flood
yes, ma'am.
elevation?
That's
Okay.
my understanding.
So those two people need to be consulted before final approval. So if no one has any other questions, can we have, and no one has any questions, because there's a lot here to consider. We certainly appreciate you addressing the issues that we had about the entranceway in design review, and thank you for doing that. We appreciate that. Okay.
I did have, in my recommendation, was regarding the future kitchen hoods.
Oh, yes. Can you, you did, okay. Can you show us a picture of that? Thank you for reminding us of that. Yes, there was something
You mean
else.
down-
Can you show us a picture to what you are referring?
There's no picture because it doesn't exist yet, and
Okay.
that's kind of the issue.
Okay.
The thing is with restaurants, oftentimes they're very beautiful, and then at some point the kitchen equipment goes in, and you end up with these mushrooms and things all over your building, metal mushrooms and in awkward locations and things. So this was my concern. It's not something that is usually knowable at this point in the design or this point in the project, but at some point it will be knowable, and at that point then it would seem to be appropriate at that point to bring it back either to me for my review as like a utility or that kind of addition to the design. It could be an amendment to the design. It could come back to you guys, design review, and then you could decide as well. So however you want, but those things oftentimes become quite ugly.
Isn't that a normal expectation, though, if the design changes, then it would come back?
Well, this would make it clear that they're expected to do that.
So we applaud staff on his astuteness in bringing that up, and in fact, we are uncertain as to where the exterior appurtenances will occur. We don't mind coming back either to staff or this board at a later date once we can nail that down. I will share with you that currently there are a number of those appurtenances on the exterior of the Harvey mansion that have not been removed, and we plan on reusing as many of those holes as we can. So we're going to focus that type of thing on the west side of the building.
Okay, so that would be the third thing in terms of things that need to come back or to go to other people. So, parking spaces are going to go to zoning. Flood elevation is going to go to
Inspections.
the inspections, and then these appurtenances can come back to us. Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay, so they
Happy
can come
to.
back to us. And then your use of plantings is going to be a fourth thing that will come back to us.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we've got four things. So who would like to venture, okay, and Madam down there, I'm sure will have some verbiage that can help us specifically add the four things we need to add here at the end. These are not usual things that we have, so I know that you'll help us.
Ready?
We're ready, yes, sir.
I move we find the application for 211 South Front Street.
221.
221,
excuse me.
South Front Street.
221 South Front Street, be approved, or certificate of appropriateness for 220 be found not incongruous with the New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15-411 and 15-429, and New Bern Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Public and open spaces, 2.2.1, utilities, 2.3.1, 2, and 6, landscaping, 2.4, 3, 4, and 7, fences and garden walls, 5.1,
2.5.1.
2.5.1, 2.5.2, and 3, parking, 2.7.5, signage, 2.8.2, design principles, 3.1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, modifications, 3.2.1, 2, and 4, additions, 3.3.1 and 2, foundations, 4.11, 4.13, 4, 5, and 6, walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.1, 2, and 4, windows and doors, 4.3.1, 2, and 3, entrances, 4.4.1 and 4.4.4, roofs, 4.5.4 and 5.5.6, decks and patios, 4.6.2, accessibility and life safety, 4.7.2, masonry, 5.1.1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, wood, 5.2, or 4.2.1 and 2, metals, 5.3.3 and 4, paint, 5.4.1, 2, 3, and 4, the statements of reason being the projects located in the...
Findings of fact.
Findings
Findings of fact,
of fact
yes.
are where?
Being.
Findings of fact being the projects located in the dense fabric development pattern, proposals in addition to the site work project, proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines, zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed the project and commented accordingly. The project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Offer the following conditions. The construction not begin until the zoning permit is approved. That covers parking. The flood elevation guidelines are met. The planting, I guess the planting one will come back for later approval, landscape plan. And what was the other one?
The purchases, purchases,
So any appurtenances added to the design will come back for approval.
Will you help us a little bit with the verbiage of
Absolutely.
that?
I think what I heard Mr. Bisbee say was subject to the following conditions. 1, construction not begin until the project is compliant with the land use ordinance as determined by the city zoning administrator.
Yes.
2,
Yeah.
construction not begin until the project complies with the flood ordinance as determined by the city's inspections department.
Yes.
3, that the applicant present a landscape design plan to the HPC at a later time.
Yes.
And 4, that the kitchen exhaust hoods and other mechanical appurtenances not be installed until reviewed by the HPC at a later time.
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly what I said.
Exactly, that's exactly what he said. I know that's exactly what he said. Okay. All right, that is what we are voting on, okay?
And I will second.
Okay, you're going to second it. We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All of those nays? We don't have any, so it passes. So can I have a motion to issue a COA
And
with the
Madam-
conditions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that the issuance of the COA is subject to the conditions.
Yes, I probably, it didn't come out well, but I said a motion to issue a COA with all the conditions,
Yes, ma'am.
with all the 4 conditions that have been stated. Okay, can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Peggy moves. Do we have a second?
Second.
Jim seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Hearing none, you can be issued a COA with those 4 conditions.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
You're welcome, and I know we'll see you again about this.
We'll be back.
Okay.
Seconds.
Who did the motion for issuing the COA? Peggy?
Peggy and Jim second.
And can someone tell me when Tony left? Was it just a minute ago or 20 minutes ago? I didn't notice.
Kind of in the discussion of this.
So, say 6:45, 15 minutes ago?
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah.
How long have we been talking about this? What was your question?
How long ago did he leave?
Yeah, when Tony left.
Commissioner Brown. Okay.
Commissioner Bryce, yes.
Okay, so can we now move on to 211 Pollock Street?
Yes, 211 Pollock Street. Okay. So here we see the application, fields filled in and then signed and dated at the bottom, again by the applicant's representative, MBF Architects. And this also, their cover letter also includes, again, some additional information about the materials. Here we have brick veneer addition, wood overhangs with fiberglass asphalt shingles, brick veneer infill panel at removed windows, new recessed door, metal doors and frames, wood trim and painting the gray floodproofing to complement brick masonry above. Sorry, I don't know why he's doing that. Okay, so now to the drawings. This being the first page, we see on the left the front elevation of the building and the site plan. We're going to be talking about the back of the building, however. And this, we have a drawing of the site plan here. Need to go a little bit larger. And the street, again, is at the top of the drawing on the north side. And we see the existing building here in dark gray. And then all the new addition work will be here in this white area here. And the dark gray is the existing paving. And otherwise, the purple line is the property line around the property. And to note is that the building is very close to, if not on, the existing property line, the existing building. So, and just while we're here, bigger view of the front, but also the bigger view of the aerial. Next page. Here we have that was the existing site plan. Now this is the proposed site plan. We can see the addition work being shown here in that white area. The larger rectangle here is the roof to be added, which slopes to the right, and then there's a ridge for a short stretch here, and then it slopes also to the left. In the other pieces, we'll see what they mean. This larger rectangle here is the, I guess, the roof of the freezer, walk-in freezer. So here we see a roof, an enlarged roof plan here. Again, the two roofs going to the right and to the left, the walk-in freezer, and then these 4 circles are actually condensing units for the air conditioning. All right, and then everything above this is the existing structure. All right, next. All right, so now we see the proposed elevations. This being first from the west. So the street is on the left, with the entrance on this side of the building from the street. On this elevation, the floodproofing goes to where this double black line is, which is the new wood trim that they're placing at the top of the floodproofing, and then they're painting the floodproofing to match the brick above the wood trim. Then these 5 windows will be bricked in but recessed slightly. And then at the back, everything beyond this tall section is new. Everything to the right of this tall section is new, with the one smaller roof sloping towards us here, and then a brick wall underneath the construction behind that sloping area. And then on this side, we're looking actually at the ridge line, and then we're looking at the underside of the roofing and some of the framing underneath the ridge at that point, with the columns that are supporting the roof. And this is the back side of the walk-in freezer. This happens to be one of the condensing units, which is shown on a platform in order to get it above the flood elevation. So then if we go to the other side, we'll start out at the street on the right. Again, entrance on the right from the street. And then again, we have that wood trim at the top of the floodproofing with the same painting of the floodproofing there. They're looking to cut into the wall and recess a doorway on the side of the building on this side. They're also adding sconce lighting along the side as well, and enclosing 2 windows again with brick, and that brick is slightly recessed from the existing surface. And then again, behind or to the left of the tall section representing the existing building, everything to the left is new. And so this is the sloping roof, that largest roof that's sloping now down towards us. And this is a front elevation of the walk-in freezer. And again, the brick wall and 2 condensing units here. Right. So let's look at it from the rear, from the back. You see that the brick wall that we were talking about is actually comes out to the west edge of the building. And then there is, it's a little hard to see, let me make that bigger. This is a small elevation. There we go, that's better. This vertical black line represents a change in the plane of brick that we're looking at. And judging by this trim work, it looks like this surface is closer to us than the one behind in the back. And this is the side of the walk-in freezer. And so there's a new door going in this brick wall. And that wood trim is continuing all the way around the building, even on the new section. And these white verticals are the posts that are holding up the roofing. This is another one of the condensing units, and it looks like the electric panel. And then the north elevation is existing, or is actually the proposed terrace, et cetera, but that's not part of this. Nothing on this elevation changes as part of this project. Except what? This door is different? Oh, I see, that's what the 6 is, right, okay. So a new door, which will have glass in it. I believe the existing one has, it's not a full panel glass. All right, then otherwise, we have our zoning and inspections review. So on this one, the zoning administrator says it does meet the requirements of land use, and the chief building inspector says it will require a building permit. After that, we're ready with our recommendations.
Okay, are there any conflicts of interest by anybody on the commission? Okay, sir, is there anything else you'd like to add to this?
No, ma'am, I'm still Trip Ewer, and I'm
Okay.
still principal of MBF Architects. And,
Okay,
yeah, the content of this application is exactly what you reviewed in design review. So I'm happy to answer any questions when you get ready.
okay, all right, we'll come back to you. Are there any notified proponents in the audience? Seeing none. Are there any notified opponents? Seeing none. Is there anybody from the state, city, or government? Seeing none. So, sir, is there anybody with relevant evidence or standing? Seeing none. Our audience is getting smaller out there. So, sir, could you give us some staff findings?
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll go down here. So this being the recommendations for the applicants Pietro Palasacqua, and MBF Architects for 211 Pollock Street. Historic property name is not applicable and it's non-contributing. There is no National Register inventory description and also none in Sandbank. So the proposal is for 221 Pollock Street to include a rear addition, new walk-in freezer, new recessed side entrance, closing 7 windows, new waterproofing trim, painting waterproofing, new wall-mounted lighting, and new mechanical units on platforms, all in the secondary and tertiary AVCs, and I guess a door in the primary AVC. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines are appropriate to this application. For utilities, 2.3.1, 2.3.2. Design principles, 3.1.1, 3.1.2, and 3.1.4. For modifications, 3.2.1 and 2. For additions, went too quickly. 3.1, 2, and 3. For foundations, 4.1.1, 2, and 3. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.1, 4.2.4. For windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.1, 4.3.2. For entrances, 4.4.1, 4.4.3. For roofs, 4.5.6. For masonry, wish it would give me a warning or something. 5.1.2, 5.1.4, 5.1.5. For paint, 5.4.2, 5.4.3, and 5.4.4. For contemporary materials, 5.5.2 and 5.5.6. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located in the tight weave development pattern. The proposal is an addition and modification project. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include a rear addition, new walk-in freezer, new recessed side entrance closing 7 windows, new waterproofing trim, painting, waterproofing, new wall-mounted lighting, new mechanical units on platforms, and a new front door, all in the secondary, tertiary, and primary AVCs.
So, sir, is there anything else you'd like to add to this? Okay. All right. Members, questions that you have for Mr. Ure at this point in time? Any questions you have?
Yes, Tripp, roughly, what's the seating inside? With the closing of all the windows, I just wonder, is there seating inside?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's 40 to 50 seats.
40, 50 seats. Will that be affected by the closing of all those windows?
Well, all those windows are in the kitchen, so
Oh, okay.
I guess to answer your question, no, it will not affect the
No
seating.
problem. All right, thank you.
And are you closing up those windows due to fire issues? Or
On the
why
we-
are you closing those windows?
On the west side of the building, we are closing those because we need a fire-rated wall to comply with code
So you're doing
because
that
of
for
our
code.
closeness to the property line.
Okay.
And we're closing the remaining 2 just because, again, they're in the kitchen and the interior walls go across them. And so we thought we'd treat them all the same for consistency.
What about the 2 windows on the other side, on the east side?
Yeah, the 2 windows on the east side, we thought we would close,
Oh, those-
just to be
you're talking about those
consistent
2.
with the ones on the
Okay,
west side.
why-
Because they're in the kitchen as well,
Okay.
with the wall that runs in front of them on the inside.
And why do you need to cut a door on the east side?
We've got a door so we can have 2 means of egress.
Is that required?
2 means of egress is a
Okay, so
code
that's
requirement.
required. So these modifications you're making are required things?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So does that mean that the new rear door is only into the kitchen?
Correct.
Okay.
So there are 3 doors, just to be clear. There's
Right.
one on the front of the building,
One on the side.
and we'd like that to be a full glass door within a metal frame, just to allow daylight into the dining area.
Okay.
Then there's a half glass door on the east side of the building, which is a second means of egress for the dining room. And then there's a door on the south side of the building, which has no glass, and that's the service entrance for the kitchen.
So the door that is on the east side, when the waters come, because I know you've talked about the waterproofing you've done to the building, and we appreciate that. What are you going to do about the water that's going to come into that little doorway?
So the applicant will be providing the temporary bulkhead in front of those doors,
Okay.
similar to what we reviewed in design review. So it's a temporary floodgate, if you will,
A temporary floodgate,
that
okay.
goes in there to take care of them.
Does that need to be added to the application in some way? Have you identified that?
We have not, just because, well, I think it was their temporary.
Do we need to add that?
Well, so the only time it would be evidence, well, is when it's deployed, but there would probably be some attachments or some, I don't know, brackets or channels or something built into the building in order to take the things, which I suppose with them, and those are permanent. I suppose we could ask that it be reviewed at the time that they go to install those or prior to installing them, so that we can check and make sure it doesn't, say, damage the building or that it's, not significantly altering the appearance, historic character of the building.
Yes.
It'd be similar to what we've approved in terms of storm window protection,
Right.
like on Mitchell's Hardware.
So we take no exception to that being the condition.
Okay, so that'll be one condition. But that's the only condition we have to this. We're in two conditions tonight, but this is just one and not four. Does anybody else have any questions about this?
And Tripp, will the majority parking be in the rear?
Yes,
I know.
ma'am. There is a significant amount of parking in the rear.
And so they would walk from the rear around to the front to enter?
I would assume so. Otherwise, you're coming in by the bathrooms.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions at this time? Okay. Can I have, please, a motion that contains this one condition? Can somebody give me a motion?
Sure.
You're a motion man tonight. You're hitting two for two already. Go for it.
I move that we find the application for a certificate of appropriateness for 211 Pollock Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, Sections 15411 and 15429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Utilities 2.3.1 and 2, design principles 3.1, 2, and 4, modifications 3.2.1 and 2, additions 3.3.1, 2, and 3. Foundations 4.1.1, 2, and 3. Walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.1 and 4.2.4. Windows, doors, and openings 4.3.1 and 4.3.2. Entrances 4.4.1 and 3. Roofs 4.5.6. Masonry 5.1.2, 4, and 5. Paint 5.4.2, 3, and 4. Contemporary materials 5.5.2 and 6. Findings of fact. The project's located in the type redevelopment pattern. The proposal is an addition and modification project. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. The project's not incongruous with the guidelines. The condition to be added is that when we add appurtenances for the purposes of flood containment, we come back for approval.
Very good.
All right. Can we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Peggy has a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Here, all those against?
Who was the second?
Peggy? Peggy?
Okay.
So no one's against, so the motion passed. Can I have a motion to issue a COA with the one condition that's been stated? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
With the one condition, all of those in favor say aye. I hear
I
aye.
second and I.
Yeah, that's right. You need a second.
Jim, second. We got it going here tonight. And we've had a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those against, hearing none, you can be issued your COA with the one condition.
Yeah. Thanks for your consideration.
You're welcome.
We'll want to reseat our commissioner.
So, are you finished tonight, Mr. Ura?
On that side.
I am if you are.
Oh, we are. Okay. Do I have a motion to allow him to be reseated?
So moved.
We have a motion over here. Second over here. Jim, second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Nay. Hearing none. You may rejoin us, sir. Can we go to item F, 616 New Street?
Madam Chair, I believe I live within 100 feet of this project.
Okay. Did you receive a letter?
I don't have a mailbox.
Did you move? Did you move?
Okay, so you're going to recuse yourself.
If I may.
Okay?
Madam
All
Chair,
right,
I
can
don't-
we have a motion to
Madam
have her
Chair.
recused?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm not sure if Ms. Sheridan's response was clear on the record to your question about receiving a letter.
She said I don't have a mailbox.
Okay.
But it may have gone to my other address. However, I own property within 100 feet.
So should we consider her acknowledging that, or? Yes, okay. So can we have a motion to recuse you, please?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion over here. Do we have a second over here? Peggy's the second. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, hearing none, you may leave us for a little bit.
Thank you, ma'am.
Then we'll get you back. Okay, sir, if we can hear about 616 New Street.
Sure, 1 second.
We will wait on you.
You might need it.
All right. So here we have the application, and you can see the various items are filled in on the first page, and we jump right to the second page, and we see we have that filled out plus, wait a minute, is this right? Yes. And it's signed and dated here by the owners. So the owners also provided illustrations and photographs. So here we have an aerial view which shows 616 here is the larger one on the left. And the driveway that's being considered is shown here as well with the patio, and then hard to see here, but it's shown the shed, and there's the new shed, right? So, and then actually this, and then all of this is their yard as well. Current. And so here they've sketched for us on a different drawing the extension to the driveway about 8 feet beyond the current line, which is here dashed in, the existing patio. They would like to remove the cement fire pit, and then the shed here, 10 by 12 foot shed that is 3 feet away from the property line here. Also, they're looking to replace and update the fence on all sides of the property up to, well, beginning here at the end of the driveway, around to the left, all the way to the back, along the back, and then back around to the side up to their corner of the back corner of their house. Then they've provided a number of photographs. So this is the current driveway, already has some fencing around the end of it. They're looking to extend this then another 8 feet beyond this back fence. And that gives you an idea right there. On the side, the fence returns back to the house. So inside or on the other side of the fence, this is then the end of the driveway. You see the driveway on the left. And so the fence will be extended back to about one of these posts here. And that extends the driveway. This is the fire pit they would like to remove. And this is a photograph behind the patio showing the existing fencing along here. Several repairs that have been done over the course of time. You can see it with the newer wood there. You can also see the proximity to the neighbors. And continuing along that side, that is that photograph there. Then again, that same side, looking from about the end of the patio all the way back to the back corner of the property. And now a closer up shot of the corner of the property and showing the condition of the fence as well. Then continuing along the back of the property, it's mostly overgrown, or the fencing is a wire fencing, almost chicken wire fencing. And this is supposed to show you the chicken wire fencing, but it's very hard to see with all the plants here. There's another one closer up there. So here you can begin to see some of the horizontal lines in here, or some of the wires for that chicken wire fence. Then on the third side, the other long side of the yard, this is the condition there as well. with most of that, I believe, is also wire fencing until the end of the plants down here, and you can see it from the house looking back along there. The wooden fence does then pick up around about this location here. And then the very corner of the house is where the fence then returns back to the house. So that gives you an idea of the condition of the fencing. This is the proposal for the actual shed, the new shed. And then that's obviously the door. Then this is the one end of the shed. They revised the window to be more square or vertical. And then the back side of the shed has no window. So I believe, oh yes, so, and they also provided the actual order form for the shed, which shows some of the materials. So we're talking about hardy lap siding, and the other one is the fiberglass doors. The window is 36 by 40 with grids. What else do we have here? Maybe the next sheet. No, at the bottom here. So this shows the door, double door, the window. There's actually a window on each end of the shed. I thought there was somewhere where it said the roofing, it's architectural shingle, black or black shadow. Okay, so after that we have the zoning and inspection review. The zoning administrator says that it meets the requirements of the land use ordinance, but must meet accessory structure setbacks shown above, the 8 feet from the nearest structure, 3 feet from the side, and 3 feet from the rear. It did already show 3 feet from the side on the plan. Clearly would be farther than 8 feet away, it seems, and clearly farther than 3 feet away from the rear. And then the chief building inspector said it will require a building permit. It's just at the minimum size for needing a building permit. And then we have our recommendations ready when you're ready.
Okey dokey. Okay, are there any, does the applicant want to add anything else to this?
So my name is Sabra Mcallister, and I am the homeowner. My husband and I, we moved in December, and we're very excited to be part of the Historic Society. So one thing, the things that I would like to add is he did leave out that we are going to do wood trimmed windows. So I just want to make sure that that is clarified for you guys, and that we are doing the fiberglass asphalt shingles, which is also part of the requirements and the guidelines. So I do want to make that clear at this point. And the other thing, based on the information that I have received from our builder, is that the 10 by 12 would not require a zoning permit. That is, to be completely honest with you guys, not something that my husband and I are interested in doing. So just to go ahead and clarify, we will reduce the size of the shed to not have to do that building permit. We do not want to go through the extra steps to have to do that. So if it's the 10 by 12, and that was the minimum is what you said.
Yes.
So we'll probably downsize that to a 10 by 10, and I'd be happy to send that paper to you once that was updated with our shed company.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, are there any notified proponents, notified opponents? Is there anybody with relevant evidence in his standing? Nobody out there? Is anybody from the city, state, or government? No. Okay, so can you give us staff findings?
Definitely. All right. Okay, our recommendations for Adam and Sabra Mcallister for their project at 616 New Street. The project is to include a new shed, extend the driveway, and new fencing, all in the tertiary AVC. The National Inventory information for the historic property name is the Cicero Duncan House, built in 1885. It is a contributing structure, and the description is 2 stories, 3 bays wide, 2 bays deep, 4/4 sash, hip roof porch, square post balustrades, aluminum siding, metal clad gable end roof, curvilinear brackets beneath cornice returns, transverse 2-story rear additions. And there is no sandbag description for that. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. So fences and garden walls, 2.5.1, 2.5.3, 2.5.4. Accessory structures, 2.6.1, 2.6.3. Parking, 2.7.1, 2, and 4. Design principles, 3.1.1, 3.1.2. Foundations, 4.1.3. Walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.4, 4.2.5. Windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2 and 3. Masonry, 5.1.5. Metals, 5.3.4. Paint, 5.4.2, 3, and 4. And contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. And statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the structure is a contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. 2, the project is within the tertiary AVC. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include a new shed, extend the driveway, and new fencing, all in the tertiary AVC.
All right, so ma'am, are there any other comments you'd like to make? Okay, so we need to amend this in some way that the shed's going to be 10 by 10 instead of 10 by 12? Where do we need to amend that?
I suppose, yeah, you could, I mean, it gets smaller. You could approve it as both, you could say, yeah. It's approved as a 10 by 12 or a 10 by 10. You could do it that way and then just be done with it that way. Or if you want to have me review it after they submit the revised drawings, to submit it as a condition.
Okay, so we'll have that as a condition that,
Sure.
that you will review the revised drawing for the size of the shed.
Sure.
Okay, that'll be the one condition we have on this. Okay.
The shed's going to be the same, just smaller. Everything else the same.
Yes, sir, it'll be exactly the same, I'll just downsize it. Again, to be honest, like, I don't want to do a building permit.
Okay, so do we have any other questions that we want to ask at this point in time?
Yeah, one question. Do we understand that the foundation is going to be concrete block?
I have a picture of the brick that we're going to use for the foundation. I live in Raleigh. I'm going to veterinary school, so I was not able to get it in time. So I'm not sure how I could show that to you, but I have it on my phone. I could walk over there and show it to you. Is that allowed?
Probably show it to him.
Yeah, well, we can put it up on the screen.
Yeah, and he can put it on this right here.
Look at this.
I think she just asked if she understand it was going to be that.
So for clarification, the brick that I did pull this, I was in a hurry today. I had to leave directly from my clinical rotation to be here on time for this meeting, so I drove from Raleigh. So this was a quick picture that I snapped of like the top 3 bricks on the stack, but we do have a large stack of the brick that was used to do the foundation of the home that we live in. And that is the brick that we're proposing to use. So again, like, this may not be like the prettiest brick in this picture as a warning, but it's what I could get quick and make sure that I could be here on time for you guys.
But it's authentic.
It's authentic, that
Yeah,
is correct.
That's hard to say, the fact it goes with the house, we'll like that.
My mom grew up and loved Victorian homes, and so I've lived in Victorian homes a lot of my life, and she passed on her love for them to me, so I'm very excited to be able to keep that going, so. I'm gonna do some work. I could also email it to you. Do you want me to email it to you?
All right, I suppose we'll do the handing around the crowd.
Do we need to see the picture? I mean, she's saying she's gonna use the traditional brick that they reclaimed from the house. Is that okay?
Do we need that,
Oh, it's up to you guys. You
or
want to
can we
see the
just
picture?
leave it up to Matt?
That's sufficient.
I
I'm
don't need to
okay.
handle it.
Yeah, I'm okay, if it's brick you use from the house, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Peggy?
Yeah, and do we need to refer that to Matt to when they finally decide, or what?
No, they have decided, she has pictures of it. Do you want to see, could you show her the
Yes.
picture? Just show her the picture, just walk over there and show her the picture. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So we could make a note also in there that that's the foundation that she's going to use,
Yes.
okay?
Well, let's see. I think the application we already have it in.
I think it states.
It's already
I think-
stated in there?
I think it states that it's
Okay,
just
that's
brick.
fine. Okay, all right, then we're good to go. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so can we have a motion regarding 616 New Street with the condition added to it that there's going to be a new drawing for the size of the shed?
I'll make a motion,
Okay, all right.
so Jim doesn't have to do all of them. Let's see. I move that we find the application or a certificate of appropriateness for 616 New Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, Sections 15-411 to 15-429, and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Let's see, I've got them here. Fences and garden walls, 2.51, 3, and 4. Accessory structures, 2.61 and 3. Parking, 2.71, 2, and 4. Design principles, 3.11 and 2. Foundations, 4.1.3. Walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.4 and 5. Windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2 and 3. Masonry, 5.1.5. Metals, 5.3.4. Paint, 5.4.2, 3, and 4. Contemporary materials, 5.1, 5.51, 2, and 3. 5 and 6. Findings of facts. The structure is a contributing structure in the tight weave development pattern. The project is within a tertiary AVC. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly, and the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. On the condition that the reduced building come back to the administrator for review, 10 by 10 come back for review. Is that okay to just let that come back to?
I think having the HPC administrator review to make sure that the revised application is consistent with the testimony today is appropriate. Madam Chair, as I've reflected on the conversation tonight as it relates to this application, I must confess that I have not memorized the building code, and I'm not certain that the reduction of size alone would exclude this project from needing a building permit. And
I've been informed that the 12-foot dimension is what triggers the,
Yep.
Okay.
That's mine.
and just for information purposes, the only requirement they have at that point for a shed is hurricane tie downs.
Yeah. It's not a hard process if you
No.
want to get a building
It's just
permit.
one
Once she goes
requirement.
back there, it's
Yeah.
really not hard, but.
And it may be, Madam Chair, that if hurricane tie downs or whatever are also required with the reduced size, that there be a condition that the application comply with any relevant zoning ordinances. So if
So
the
you
tie
mean
down,
bu-
building code, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
building code regulations, so that if there is something else out there, that's in consideration. And if it doesn't apply, then specific regulations don't apply, then they don't apply.
Okay,
So I'm going to second the motion.
with the condition. Okay. All right, you got all that written down, sir?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, we appreciate that.
So the condition is for the reduced size of the shed to come back to the HPA and to comply with any applicable building code requirements.
That sounds just about what she said. I believe that's
exactly
what
what I
she said.
said.
Yep.
Thank
Okay. We've had a motion, we've had a second, all in favor, and we've had the condition. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed. Can I have a motion with the condition to give a COA?
So moved.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second over here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, hear that? All those opposed? Hearing none, you can be issued your COA with this condition. So if you'll get with Matt and find out whether you want to keep that size and put the straps or what you need to do. Okay. All right, thank you for coming. We know you had to leave and get here, so thank you for getting here. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's go then to G to 316 Liberty Street. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Okay. Oh, we need to reseat one of our commissioners?
Oh, gotta get Ellen.
Oh, yes. Can we have a motion, please?
Make a motion to have Ms. Sheraton return to the podium.
Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second over here by Peggy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. She's coming this way. The motion passed. So tell us about 316 Liberty Street.
All right.
Can I ask a question? My screen's not on. Can you individually do anything about that or not?
I think sometimes.
Okay, all right.
You might try this seat.
Okay, all right. I'll look over there if I need to. Okay, that's fine. Let us proceed onward.
Your screen, you don't have a screen then, right? They're not facing you at all.
No, that's all right. I'll keep it.
So, all right, the blind, oh, we won't go there. All right, 316 Liberty Street, here we have our application, fully filled out and signed and dated. And then we also have the authorization by the owner that the, what did it say, C.R. Francis Architecture is authorized to represent them. And as with at the design review meeting, I pointed out that this property is indeed in the historic district, albeit right on the edge in the corner, essentially. Pollock and Liberty Street is where the boundary is here, shown in yellow, and the property, actually 3 properties, parcels, subject to this project are shown here in blue. Did I skip something? No. And then the applicants provided these photos. The upper photograph shows, let me make this bigger, sorry. The subject site is here, the grassy area on the right. They have an existing gravel driveway, and then which is on, say, the middle parcel, and then the third parcel has this structure house on the front of it. This shows a little bit more of the area where the house is to be constructed. Might also note the bench along the sidewalk is a bus stop, I guess, area. Then looking across the site, adjacent to it is the daycare center for the housing project there. There's also a driveway in between, which is shown here on the bottom. This driveway here on the right, the site is again the grassy area here. Then looking along the street to demonstrate the streetscape, the relevant context. The site here is shown behind the tree. There's the driveway we just pointed out earlier, and so the grassy area, and then the concrete block house behind that. So staff augmented those with some additional photographs. These, albeit, are from 2012, whereas the applicants were recent. So this being the site here on the upper right, the driveway is not yet there in 2012. That's the concrete block house. Across the street is another house, as you can see here, but that is the only house you can see in that photograph. As you proceed farther down, farther down the street, here's the concrete block house. Next to it is actually another small house tucked under these trees. Then after that, a hedgerow of sorts, and then a vacant lot with lawn. And then finally the house on the corner with a hedge around it. Then looking the other direction, you see again the driveway, that tree, and the daycare, but across the street on the other side is a vacant lot again, and some trees around the perimeters of those lots. The middle photo shows a more head-on view of the daycare building, showing the size and shape of that and character of that. And then, lo and behold, farther down the street on the right-hand side, there is one more historic character building on the street. This now is the site plan proposed for the house. The house shown here in gray. The white is, first of all, the existing sidewalk along the front, and then the new sidewalk along the, let's call it northern side. And what you also see here are some of the property lines. They're proposing a parking lot in this other gray area up here. And this is the gravel driveway and the existing parking area for the house that where the property owners actually live in this building behind here. So what you'll see is the property lines are shown here in red. And so the main parcel is delineated here by this hand, but then there's another sliver of a parcel that actually is 20 feet or so wide, maybe not even, and extends the full length of this property. So this parking area crosses that and actually extends onto the third parcel. All parcels are owned by the owners. So all three are under their ownership. But it may become an issue with zoning with regard to having parking for the house existing on two other parcels. All right. So they're not proposing a new house on the same property as the existing house, nor their current house where they live. It's on its own separate parcel. All right. This is a floor plan just briefly of the house, the streets on the left and the sidewalk existing with the new sidewalk. The actual entrance is around to the back of the house here on the right-hand side. And then other than that, for us, there's a series of lights along the sidewalk. One window on the front, one on the side towards the front, one doorway along this side that leads to kind of a utility area. The kitchen is in the back of the house. The other thing to notice here is along the back side, what looks like a dashed line is actually a lattice or a screen, vertical screen, wood slats, vertical across and in this configuration. And in between that and the actual structure is where the mechanical units are located. Then along the bottom side of the house here, the southern side, there's large expansive windows on this side, then there's 2 more windows. All right. The next one, so this shows the elevations for this house. So the front is actually this upper right one. So this is what faces the street. And we'll see some 3-dimensional images here shortly just to explain this better. This elevation is the side elevation where the sidewalk goes along this side. And then this is the quote-unquote front door at the back. The back front door at the front. So, and then this on the right, lower right, is the back of the house with that vertical wood slat screen to screen the HVAC units, which you also see on the right-hand side of this lower left drawing. And then this side is the side that faces the the alley that's along the side of the property. And so this little person here is, say, standing on the sidewalk out front. We're in the front yard. Okay, keep going. So, oops, too quick. There we go. So this would be, say, the primary illustration showing the basic form and shape and character of the building. You can see almost entire first 8 feet or so of brick siding around the entire base of the building, and then above that is some siding and the sloped roofs. We have a different texture here in this form here, and these are the lighting bollards along the sidewalk. And so you would enter underneath this overhang here to go around the corner and into the front entrance, which is at the back. This would be the other front elevation. So from the other angle, say from the entrance to the big driveway on the right, and you can see the various roof forms similar to the one of the building next door. Perspective along the entrance walkway, and there would be the gravel driveway in here instead of the grass. And you can see the car parked, I guess, kind of behind this tree. That's where the parking area would be. And then finally, the perspective from the rear view, a little bit dark due to the shading, but gives you an idea of the metals, the wood vertical slats for the screen for the HVAC units. Okay, and then I guess we're ready for the zoning and inspections, sorry, first. The zoning administrator says it does meet the requirements of the land use ordinance and must meet the setbacks provided above, being the front is the average along the streetscape, and the side is 5 feet, and the rear is 6 feet. Then the chief building inspector says, of course, we'll need a building permit. And then we're ready with our recommendations.
Okay. Is there anybody who has a conflict of interest with this project? Anyone who has some concerns about the application at this point in time? Okay. Does the applicant want to make any other additional statements at this time?
Madam Chairman, I'm Charles Francis, architect on the project, and I think that Matt has done a very good job of describing the project for us, so we'll let it stand with that, and we'll receive questions.
Okay. Is there any notified proponent of this project City. Is there any notified opponent? Don't see any. Is there anybody with relevant evidence and has standing? See anybody? Is there anybody from the city, state, or government body that'd like to say anything? All right. So we can move right on, and you can tell us your staff findings.
All right. Okay, so we'll start here with, the applicants are Bern Investment Group Incorporated and C.R. Francis Architecture for the project at 316 Liberty Street. The historic property name is not applicable. It's a vacant lot, and there is, of course, no inventory description or sandbank description, and the project is to include a new infill one-story house and parking area. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines are appropriate to this application. For development pattern 2.1.1, 2, and 3. For utilities 2.3.1 and 2. For landscaping 2.4.4. For parking 2.7.1, 2, 4, and 5. For design principles 3.1.1, 2, and 5. For infill construction 3.4.1, 2, 3, and 4. For foundations 4.1.3. Walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.4. Windows, doors, and openings 4.3.3. Entrances 4.4.4. Paint 5.4.2, 3, 4. And contemporary materials 5.1, 2, 3, and 6. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located in the tight weave development pattern. 2, existing development pattern along Liberty Street has been severely weakened by vacant lots and non-conforming structures. 3, the proposal is an infill project in a modern style to fit with a neighboring structure. 4, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 5, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 6, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include a new infill one-story house and parking area with the following condition. Before pulling a building permit, the applicant shall provide verification of the zoning and subdivision requirements to the HPA. If site changes are needed, the applicant shall submit revised drawings to the HPA for his approval or for review and approval by the HPC.
Thank you, sir. So any final comments, sir, you'd like to make?
I think the only comment I'd like to make is dealing with the setback requirements. It was our understanding that there was a zone established between the building that is closest to the street and the building that is furthest away from the street, and that we should fall within that, which we do.
Yeah, maybe I should clarify, it really has to do with the parking.
It has to do with parking.
Yeah, right, sorry.
Okay. Members, any questions or comments you'd like to make at this point in time?
I do want to ask a quick question. I know that in design review, we heard some comments about the choice of style and wanting to be similar or connected with the other structures. But in that block, it's all over the map. It's residential, modern, more contemporary. So help me understand the choice for this really modern structure in a historical district.
We took the one which really represented the time period that we're in today, which is the daycare center next door.
For a residence, not a business.
Right.
Say that again. Say that again.
When you look at the block that this is sitting on, the daycare center is the only structure which could be considered a structure that would be, what's that term that you all use?
Congruous?
Not congruous, but it's one that represents its time.
Oh, well, that's a good way
Contemporary.
of saying it. represents its
So
time.
it's the newest thing, it's like the newest thing on the street?
Not so much the newest thing, but it's the only work of architecture on that street. Let's put it that way. The rest of the structures are just buildings. They're not works of architecture.
Vernacular?
Or, well, it's not vernacular, is what he's
Right,
saying.
Right, the others are vernacular.
And so,
That's our reasoning behind it.
so you consider the daycare center to be the work of primary architectural interest on the street?
On that, not only on that street, but
I mean, on that block? Okay.
And is the daycare center a contributing structure?
No.
No.
That's because it was not even 50 years old at the time that we set up the district.
Right, but we've done expansions or we've done revisions to the district. I didn't know if the time
Have to remember-
period, the period of significance had grown or not, so.
That structure was built about 1978.
Oh, okay.
So it's working on 50 years. So
for
it is
design-
it's your point of inspiration.
That's right.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you.
So for design principles, in fitting within guidelines, do you have a guideline to back up that choice? I'm struggling to get there, so help me get there.
I'm not sure that you have guidelines that even represent anything in the modern era.
Actually, we do.
Okay?
For infill construction, there's a guideline
Oh,
that
there's lots of them.
says,
Well, I'm gonna help out a little bit while
I'm looking
Ellen
at
is
you.
looking. So guideline 3.4.1, maintain the relationship between building mass and open space that exists on the block or streetscape.
We can go with that.
I'd say we probably check that box. The predominant material of an infill building, guideline 3.4.2, shall visually emulate the palette of materials traditionally found in the historic district. So I think we've got brick and
Brick and wood.
wood and
Shingles.
and vertical windows predominantly. Guideline 3.4.3 is use of modern materials is acceptable as a means of continuing the evolution of architecture through time. However, you're not using any inappropriate materials. So, essentially I think we're saying this is a record of its time and place. The vacant lot just happens to be in the historic district.
And then the second paragraph that leads into those guidelines is what I was searching for, which is an infill structure, and let me move this because it's probably impossible to hear me. An infill structure should reflect its time of design, which is now. The intent of New Bern's historic district guidelines is not to impose particular architectural styles, but to guide change that protects and contributes to the character of historic districts. So evaluate the context and sensitivity of the immediate area, which is the daycare center, and shape infill construction to positively impact that.
Okay, so specifically to roof lines, that's those diverging roof lines are somewhat.
Or reflect the daycare center that's adjacent. So it's an ancillary structure to what's existing, and the two buildings have a dialogue.
And as we go around the block for infill,
Then other structures will evolve just as, and the picture shown here, the new townhouses down by the waterfront have a different sort of ornamentation than had they been constructed 100 years previous.
however, if we have empty lots and.
And then the redevelopment commission will, and I think part of this area is under consideration of the redevelopment commission, if I'm not, I get some nodded heads out there. So they will bring us additional projects that will be designed by other architects and will interpret the guidelines that his or her way. But
The problem they're going to run into is they're going to be essentially working with an empty field,
right.
even
And so-
more so than we have been.
And so one of the things, because Commissioners, your Bisbee and I are on the subcommittee of this committee that's about guideline updates. And so one of the things we always seek to encourage is not what is called in the preservation business phony colony, but buildings that reflect the time in which they were designed, which is now. Just as a Victorian house reflects its era, or a federal-style house reflects its era, a new house needs to reflect our era.
Yes and no. When you look at harmony within a block, you have, in this particular instance, that corner is more contemporary, and then you have literally farmhouses, as you go down the street, there's that single farmhouse, and then on the other side of the street. So you really are dealing with yesteryear, and we're infilling with a modern structure. And so you start getting a combination of all kinds of things on that block. Is that where we're going?
Well, yes, because streets and cities evolve over time, and so you want, architecture is a physical representation of the evolution over time. And so you want your buildings to reflect the times in which they were built, just as the building that we struggled with so on Front Street, on your block, that had been a cement block cottage that seemed harmonious with the block, but it was an active representation of when the lumber yard was there and that working people lived in those houses at that time. And that's why it was really a struggle for the Historic Preservation Commission to decide what to do when it was in trouble. And so a new building similarly goes up and reflects this period of time in which new construction will come to New Bern.
When you have a vacant lot on a block where there are homes that are original to the area, then you have an infill that was done in the 50s or 60s and is reflective of that time. You're then making a decision on the phony colonial or whatever you call it. You're making a decision then.
In academic historic in academia, if you're studying historic preservation, that is, one of the things that you will learn is that it's not Disney, and so you don't want to attempt to recreate what was, but you want to create what is.
Is that how we're going to approach it if, say, the vacant lot on the river across from me, are we going to put a modern contemporary in that lot because we're reflective of the day that it's being built?
I believe we have a
In the middle.
certificate of appropriateness for a structure there that is modern, yes, because it's being built now.
But by the same token, it should reflect other structures around it.
In scale and materials
That's right.
and fenestration.
Which is the reason
Rhythm.
that we did what we did based on that daycare center building
Right.
next door.
So,
Clearly, that fits well in that corner. I don't really have a problem with that design in that corner. The problem I have is that if we're going to say infills can be reflective of today, 2022, we have all over the map, and then I don't understand what we're really preserving and within our historic district.
Well, you're preserving the older homes. Yeah, that's obvious.
Okay, so if you have a farmhouse and you have an unfortunate location next to an empty lot, they can put a contemporary next to you.
But it should be related to your house.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry to take up your time.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, so
You know,
let
been
it,
here
we
since
can
10
have this discussion for another time, okay? Unless you've got some specific, just hold on, unless you've got some other specific,
I already said that I'm done.
okay, you're done, okay. All right.
The owner would like to speak, and she needs to be sworn in.
Yep, yep.
Do you swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Okay, and then can you add your name at the bottom?
Sure.
I just want to say I appreciate the questions that you've asked, and I hear them deeply. I think this structure in the areas of infill that you have referenced on east front or south front would be, this particular structure would be totally inappropriate. And so to the guidelines that you have, this structure appears to be quite appropriate to the neighborhood in which it is being built. I can't imagine such a structure being built near our friends' houses on King Street, New Street, South Front, because this structure would be totally inappropriate. And so building new, to Ms. Sheridan's comments, I think resonate deeply with me about building today, just as our ancestors built 300 years ago, 200 years ago, 100 years ago, and 50 years ago. So I look forward to this commission's consideration of this project, and that's, I guess, what I would say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any other comments from commission? All righty, so can we have a motion regarding this application?
Sure.
Okay,
I move that we find the application for 316 Liberty Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance 15-41 to 15-429, and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Development patterns 2.1.1, 2, and 3, utilities 2.3.1 and 2.3.2, landscaping 2.4.4, parking 2.7.1, 2, 4, 5. That's all.
Well,
And design principles 3.1.1, 2, and 3, and 5. Infill construction 3.4.1, 2, 3, and 4. Foundations 4.1.3. Walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.4. Windows, doors, and openings 4.3.3. Entrances 4.4.4. Paint 5.4.2, 3, and 6.
whoops, 4.
Sorry, did I
Yep. 2, 3, and 4.
3 and 4, and
Sorry, clicked it too quickly.
yeah, okay. Did I do contemporary materials?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. 5.5.1, 2, 3, and 6. Findings of fact, statements of reason. The project is located in a tight weave development pattern. Existing development pattern along Liberty Street has been severely weakened by vacant lots and non-conforming structures. The proposal is an infill project in a modern style to fit with a neighboring structure. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. Zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed the project and commented accordingly. The project is not incongruous with the guidelines. And the only condition would be that the zoning requirement around the location of the parking lot be approved.
That's zoning and subdivision.
Yeah.
okay. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Peggy. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed say no.
No.
Okay, we have one, okay, the motion passed.
We had an opposition? Peggy?
We had one.
Candace.
No, Candace?
We
Okay.
had one, Candace.
And who second?
Peggy.
Peggy?
Oh, thank you.
Peggy second. All okay except for one, Candace. Okay, so the motion passed. Do we have a motion to issue the COA with the one condition?
So moved.
So moved. Over here, do we have a second?
Second.
Peggy's a second with the one condition. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All of those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed.
All right.
Okay? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okey-dokey, let's go to 521 Hancock Street.
All right.
Our last,
We can start with being the application, providing all the necessary information, and signed and dated. And we have the owner's authorization for Go Architectural Design to represent the owners. And we'll start with the drawings now. So the first drawing shows an aerial of the property shown here. We can see the crescent driveway, the house, and then the, what do you call it? Secondary residence? Dependency, thank you. Slipped my mind. And then the garage under consideration is back here in the very back corner of the property. Whew. That was way too many. All right, we'll start with some photographs. This is the front of the garage, the side of the garage facing the yard, and then an oblique view of that showing the front and the side. We have a doorway entrance here. Primarily to note here is this is a secondary roof, one-story shed roof attached to the side of the building. And we have currently, it's basically a gable roof we can see on the front, and then on the rear is the same, but the sides are flat slopes down to the side. That is to change. And here we see a view then of the garage. In the lower left photograph, the garage on the right with a dependency off to the left, showing the proximity of those. We have the detail here at the, I guess this is the rear corner, right? Oh, okay, right there. Okay, I'll make that much larger. So, sorry. There we go. Here's the mini split on the back of the garage, sitting right there. And then the rest of the garage, the last photograph also shows the dependency on the right, proximity of the two. Also note the existing window and the kind of character, the siding, etc. All right, next is the drawings. So first we have the front of the garage, the elevation, existing elevation, the existing side elevation, then we have the existing rear elevation, and then the other side with the front with its little shed roof over the garage doors off to the right. So there's windows facing the side property line, huh? Okay. All right. Next drawing, we'll start here on the left again. The new or proposed front elevation would be this because they're proposing to add a new gable going the opposite direction, a transverse gable, which is better seen on this side then. Where so now, before, as I mentioned, above that sloping shed roof, the existing roof just slopes up. They are proposing to add a gable end to this side of the garage. And then similarly on the opposite side, we'll just scoot it up like this. The side that's facing the side yard, side property, also a gable on that side. So essentially, and then here's where we have the roof elevation, the roof plan. A little bit less, please. Here we go. The front of the garage is down at the bottom here with that little bit of roof projecting out below the main roof. And so adding the gable on the right and the gable on the left. And this affords inside more headroom and space for them to use for this plan to convert it to allow for sleeping and cooking and bathroom and storage. And a washer and dryer. So, all right. So, other than that, we have our zoning and inspections form here with the zoning administrator says it does meet the requirements of the land use ordinance, and the building inspector will require a building permit. And then otherwise, I'm ready with my recommendations.
Okey-dokey. Are there any conflicts of interest that anybody has? Hearing none. Do you want to add anything else to what's been said? Hearing none. There is nobody else left in the audience for proponents, opponents, persons with relevant standing, or city staff or government. So let us go, sir, to your staff findings.
Okay. Oh, well, how we go through that so quickly?
That's because there's nobody left.
All right. All right, so here's our recommendations for Mr. and Mrs. Conard and Go Architectural Design for the project at 521 Handicapped Street to include roof revisions to an existing garage in the tertiary AVC. National Register Inventory information is this is the property of the Core Cook House built in about 1790, so even older than the Harvey Mansion. Remodeled in 1822 and 1850, and then moved from 411 to 415 Craven Street in 1981 to this location. And nevertheless, it is still a contributing structure, and the description is 2.5 stories, L plan, 4 bays wide, gable and hip roofs, and interior chimneys. Sandbeck does not have a description for some reason. Anyway, since we're only dealing with garage, wouldn't matter. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. Accessory structures, 2.6.2. Design principles, 3.1.1, 3.1.2. For modifications, 3.2.1. Walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.4 and 5. Windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2 and 3. For roofs, 4.5.2 and 4. For paint, 5.4.2, 3, and 4. For contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, 3, and 5. For statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the structure is a contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. 2, the project is within the tertiary AVC. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Staff recommends the Commission approve this application to include roof revisions to an existing garage in the tertiary AVC.
Ma'am, do you have anything else to share with us?
No, thank you.
You're welcome. Applicants, do you have anything else to share with us? Any questions at this point in time? No one has anything to say? Okay. Can I have a motion then?
I need my sheet with me.
All right. I will make a motion and Matt will roll that back. Matt, you're rolling back the wrong thing.
Yep.
Okay. I move that we find the application for 521 Hancock Street
for a certificate of appropriateness to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance sections 15.411 to 15.429 and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and finding of facts. Accessory structures 2.6.2, design principles 3.1.1, 3.1.2, modifications 3.2.1, walls, trim, and ornamentations 4.2.4, 4.2.5, windows, doors, and openings 4.3.2, 4.3.3, roofs 4.5.2, 4.5.4, paint 5.4.2, 5.4.3, and 5.4.4. Contemporary materials 5.5.1, 2, 3, and 5. Findings of fact. The structure is a contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. The project is within the tertiary AVC. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and the chief building inspector have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. The project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
Second.
Okay, that's the motion. We have a second to the motion. Okay. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed. Can I have a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, right here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Ma'am, you may have your COA. You're welcome. Is that the least words that had to ever say to you about anything? I mean, that's the least.
It's because
I know.
she had good stuff to start with.
That's right. Yeah.
See you soon.
Okay, you too. Okay, we have nobody left in our audience. So, is there any old business? None is mentioned. There are no general public comments because we have none. The one new item is to establish the deadline for design review meeting application items. And when we discussed this in design review, didn't we agreed that it was going to be Friday?
Yes, so the consensus was that, yes, deadline of Friday, noon on Friday before.
Right.
For the application and the basic information.
Okay, all right.
So we do, however, need you to actually motion and vote
Make
on
a
that.
motion.
Yep.
Yep.
That's why it's here at this meeting. Be aware that we would have to revise the policy
Yes.
guidebook
Yes.
and probably the website and every other relevant reference to that specific information.
Okay. May I have a motion?
Do we still have a quorum?
Yes.
Yeah, we got a quorum.
No.
Peggy left.
Yeah, we got 3, 4, 5, 6.
Candace is here.
We got a
Peggy
quorum.
gone?
Peggy's, yep.
So can I have a motion?
She's gone.
Okay.
Do we not have a quorum? Well, we do. So can I have a motion for the design review meeting deadline to be on Friday at noontime before the design review meeting the next Wednesday?
Right.
So moved.
We have a so
Second.
moved here. All right. Do we have a second?
Jim.
Second.
Jim is the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed with the references to this in other places, in other documents be addressed and changed.
Right.
Okay?
And I believe it's my understanding that we have control over all those references, so we don't need any other approvals.
That's
That
correct.
is correct. Yes. That is correct. Okay, item 8 is the HPC Administrator's report of COAs issued, majors and minors. Item B there is report on the COA extension issued to 720 East Front Street to that infield house. Is there something we need to talk about that?
Nope, I'm just informing you that we did issue
Informing
that.
us? Does anybody have any item under C, other items and updates?
So that would be, it's under my report, so I have nothing to add.
You have nothing to add? Does any member? Hearing none.
Number 8 would be for you guys.
Yep.
I mean 9.
9, right. Hearing none. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Please, God.
So moved.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Did you have a second, Madam Chair?
There's what?
Did you have a second to Mr. Bisbee's motion?
Yes.
Right here? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Who was that?
Yep. Kelly, a second. We got moved, second. All in favor, say aye. All-
Aye.
We have all the ayes, opposed, hearing none. We are adjourned.
8:35. All right.